Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Youthman. It has been a whirlwind of a trip over the past week, spending 4 days in Wisconsin and Illinois, checking out some incredible home theaters. I actually visited 13 of them, and we'll be sharing each one, well, all but one of those in a video here on the channel. So make sure you're subscribed. Each day that I post a video, so every day for 12 days, I'm posting a home theater tour here on the channel. We've already done, I think I've done 4 on the channel, 3 or 4. So if you haven't checked those out, make sure you watch those. I'll have links to that at the end of this video. I've got a playlist set up. But my plan is to each day share a home theater tour with you guys. And then in the night, like right now, I'll share with you kind of my impressions, my thought, my experience of that particular home theater. We were just in such a rush trying to film 3 and 4 home theaters in one day that I literally didn't have time to kind of sit down in front of the camera and share my thoughts on that. So today we're talking about Caleb's home theater. Now, Caleb has completely done his homework. I mean, from the time I met Caleb, he made it very clear that like his main objective was to research and find speakers that measure very well, amplifiers that measure very well. And so he's kind of on the other end of the spectrum that I am. I don't look at a lot of measurements. I want to know kind of how they sound. And so when I'm buying a set of speakers, I just want to go hear them, listen to them, see if that's a sound that my ears listen. But Caleb does his homework. He knows exactly what he wants, and he's really, really interested in things that measure flat, that have low distortion. And a lot of the brands that he has in he's got 4 systems, guys, pretty much. He's got 2 upstairs, downstairs in the theater room, and then he's got an office setup. So I'll kind of talk about each one of those. But each one of these are using some really, really nice high-end gear. Sounded great, and like I said, we'll talk about each one. So upstairs, we'll start there because that's where we started when we went to his home. Upstairs, he's got a living room setup, and in that living room setup, I think there's like 4 or 5 speakers. I think it's like and then 2 subwoofers, so like a 4.2, I believe, is what it was. And so I think he does some gaming there. He watches some movies there. And then he's even got butt kickers under the couch, which was awesome. But it was my first time hearing Genelec. Active speakers, sounded really, really nice. Great imaging on those. And at first I thought he had the subs turned off. And I'm like, man, that bottom end is like it wasn't like slamming, but it was just nice and thick and full. And I said, are we listening to, true 2-channel, which is just 2 speakers playing? But what he was saying is I've got 2 speakers playing and the 2 subwoofers. And so I was like, okay, that makes more sense. Because I'm like, there's a lot of bottom end coming out of these little bookshelf speakers. But just great imaging on those. We listened to some music there. And then the JTR RS1 just nicely filled in those bottom octaves. And then the butt kickers, definitely added some really nice tactile response. And then he shares that. And then he says, now, this is one thing that I'm really excited about. He says, I love these little speakers. Probably one of my favorite speakers that I own. So it's like a rectangular cabinet. And then above that on the top is a speaker. So the speaker's firing up, and that speaker that's firing up is firing into kind of like a little sphere, a ball. And so the sound hits that ball and it disperses evenly front, right, left, rear. I mean, it's like a 360, degree dispersion pattern. And then above that ball is another little ball and a tweeter underneath. And so the tweeter is firing up, hitting this little kind of tear-shaped little ball. And then that sound is being dispersed too. And what was really interesting about this is we were demoing sitting at his dining room table because the sound was hitting us there. And then he's like, well, get up and just walk around a little bit. And the coolest thing, pretty much no matter where I walked around in the room, it still had the same kind of signature sound. It still had the same timbre. It still had the same like tonal quality. No matter where I was standing, it was a really neat experience. Never experienced anything quite like that. And so then we head downstairs and of course we talk about all the equipment in his room, and he had these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Revel speakers, man. Gorgeous finish on these. I mean, I've always loved like the mahogany and cherry, those deep reds. And I don't know exactly what finish he had on them, but they were gorgeous. Absolutely loved those. But the center channel and I think the side surrounds and maybe rear surrounds, those were a different brand. And then he had kind of the small Revel speakers for his Oro 3 setup, or Oro 3D setup. And then he had some amplifiers. I wasn't familiar with that brand. And then this was my second time. Technically, I think his was the first Hover Boss. In the series, we're kind of playing them out of order because I'm trying to mix them between, you know, some really high-end stuff, and then we're going to show some budget stuff, and then some DIY stuff, and then a massive room, you know, so I'm just trying to mix up brands and different scales so there's really something for everybody. But in his setup, you know, I'm looking at these brands that I've never heard of, and again, Caleb is just real particular. He does a lot of research and wants to know, okay, how do these measure? You know, what's the distortion levels on these? Because I want them as low as possible. Speaker-wise, do these measure flat? And then that gives him the flexibility. If he wants to adjust that with mini DSP or some DSP, then he can kind of tweak it to his liking. But at least he has a flat frequency response to start with. And then he takes us behind his couch. He's got these massive, man, I mean, I'm serious, they're huge, 3 Rockford Fosgate massive subwoofers on the floor. He's like, dude, I just had to go get these. I drove all the way, I think, to Ohio to pick these up. And he said it was a Youthman deal kind of thing. No brainer, got to go get these. Like, I'm not even sure what I'm going to do with them, but we're going to have some fun in my theater room once he builds the boxes and cabinets for that. In the rear, he had a Power Sound Audio. I think it was dual 18s, huge, beautiful sub, which of course I've reviewed here on the channel. Power Sound Audio makes some incredible subwoofers. And then he has a JVC NX5. So I had never seen the NX5. So I was curious to see, like, you know, how does it compare to the NX7? And honestly, guys, man, it was still a beautiful picture. I'm not so sure if we were to put those like side by side, if there would be like a wow, holy cow from NX5 to NX7. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, the NX5 I think is like a huge value in the, you know, in the projector market. And so that looked gorgeous. We went through several demos, audio as well as video. Really immersive sound from the Oro 3D mix or the Oro 3D configuration. Very tactile response with the Hover Boss. So that, again, that was my first time experiencing it. Even though I had a previous video with David, he has a Hover Boss as well. And both of those Hover Boss experiences, man, if you've got this, I'll say this, because a lot of you guys have been asking in the comments, hey, do you see Hover Boss in your near future in my theater room? And the answer is no. And here's the biggest reason. So this right here, my front three theater seats are sitting on the floor. Behind me, my rear 3 theater seats are elevated, I think it's like 10 or 12 inches. And the hard part for me is if I were to install Hover Boss under these front 3 seats, it would have to elevate these, and then the rear seats are going to be, you know, and honestly, I have no desire I stink at DIY for one thing. Like, I can't build squat, and honestly, I don't really desire to. I just never got into DIY. Personally, I think it's awesome when people can build that stuff, but I don't get any personal satisfaction out of building a box or a subwoofer cabinet. That's just not me, or speakers. But I'm grateful for those guys that do, because you can save a ton of money. I mean, a Hover Boss, to build and buy that is a whole lot cheaper than what you would spend on something like Crosons or you know, butt kickers, as you know, tactile transducers. And so definitely a great alternative to doing something like that, and it'll save you a ton of money. But I just don't see it in here. I would probably go with something like a butt kicker or a Croson, because they can kind of be installed and it won't change the elevation of my front level. And really, guys, I couldn't see myself spending the extra money putting them on the rear seats. It would probably be just my front 3 seats, because a lot of times it's just me and a buddy, or me and one of my children, or maybe there's 3 of us, but very rarely do we have 6 people in the theater room. So I don't really see myself going down that route. Let's see what else. So his theater room was just super dope. Definitely enjoyed the demos there. We were able to, you know, to just, and he even has a I don't even know how to describe the music selection that he would choose was much different than anything I've ever listened to before. A lot of the demos, we were kind of doing some of the same ones, same music demos, same movie demos as well. And then, you know, they would kind of intermix some things that I hadn't heard or that wasn't at previous ones. But most of Caleb's selection, his audio selection, was just really different than what I had experienced. Of course, I think he did one of the Michael Jackson, so I was familiar with that. But some of the other ones were totally new, which was awesome. I love experiencing new things. And so very well done. And his room was completely black. I mean, when lights went off, dude, all you saw was projectors. So he did a great job there. And again, that was super inexpensive. You're talking velvet on the walls, basically, to hide any of those reflections. So he did a great job there. And then he moved us over to, right next to his theater room is his office, basically. And so he's got some nice speakers there, really cool. Again, another brand I wasn't familiar with. And then he shows us this beautiful, I think it's a 65-inch monitor for a computer. Are you kidding me? Dude, I would never get up out of my theater chair, man, if I had that 8K resolution, gorgeous resolution. And I'm looking at his icons, man, from his computer, and he's got like one little small corner up here, and he's got this massive display, man. So he could have like 4,000 icons on his desktop, so that could easily get carried away there. But man, he showed us a couple of scenes, and I forget the 8K demo that he had. But it was the broccoli thing. Man, I know it'll come to me after the video. But anyway, first time I'd ever seen that, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful picture. The detail in that, and then we pulled up some video content, I think from like Morocco, and man, just colors popped. And this thing was bright, dude. I mean, I'm talking bright. Had just a really, really vivid image. You know, colors were just rich and detailed, and like I said, just the clarity on it was just phenomenal. And then I had a chance to sit down and listen and demo to those speakers, and that was just cool too, because I'm not really used to like near field speakers, not nice speakers. I mean, I got little dinky computer speakers, and they're nothing fancy, so I don't have anything like audiophile grade. And he's got a little DAC up there, and dude, man, I just kind of got my zone. I sat up, I was like, oh man. So it was just super, super comfortable, super enjoyable. All three of his systems literally were completely different than the others, which is pretty awesome because most people tend to have the same thing. If they got, if they find a brand that they like, they have that brand in throughout their room. But it was really cool and refreshing that Caleb really enjoys a variety of style of speakers and sounds, and it definitely would just, so no matter where he goes in his home, he's got a cool place to listen to music as well as movies. So that kind of wraps up my experience with Caleb. Caleb, you did an awesome job with your home theater. Thanks for opening up your home. Another thing I want to mention to you guys, I just added the home theater tours merchandise to the store. So I'll have a link to it down in the description. If you enjoy these types of videos, these home theater tours, and you want to help support the channel, go pick you up a home theater tours t-shirt or hoodie. I'd be grateful for that. And be on the lookout. Tomorrow we've got a brand new video for you, home theater tour, and then another kind of reaction or my experience with that in the evening. And so guys, we'll wrap it up. Hope you have a blessed week. Actually, weekend. It's the weekend, guys. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you in the next video.